Hey everyone, and a very warm welcome. Today we're diving into a really fascinating dialogue from the opening of the Qur'an's 10th chapter, Surah Yunus. And I say dialogue because this isn't just a one-way speech. Oh no, it's a dynamic back and forth, a divine message meeting human skepticism, head on. So let's explore how this powerful argument actually unfolds.
So this is the big question that frames everything we're going to talk about today. Just put yourself in 7th century Mecca for a second. A man you've known your entire life suddenly starts reciting these incredible verses he says are from the creator of the universe. So how does a message like that even get off the ground? How does it make its case? Well, that's the powerful drama playing out right here in these verses.
So, what's really interesting is that this dialogue doesn't begin with a plea, please believe me. Not at all. It kicks off with this incredibly powerful declaration. The text itself is the first one to speak, and it establishes its own authority right from the get-go. The surah opens with these, mysterious separate letters, Alif Lām Rā, and that's a classic feature in the Qur'an that basically tells the listener, okay, lean in, pay close attention, something really important is coming. And then, boom, the claim. What you're hearing are the verses of the book, rich in wisdom. This immediately raises the stakes. It's framing this text not as just some old folklore or a beautiful poem, but as a deliberate, judicious revelation.
Now, the real key to this statement is in that Arabic term, al-hakim. See, it doesn't just mean wise. It implies something that is perfectly crafted, that's completely coherent, that's sound and judicious. The message is essentially saying, listen up, the source of this is divine, and what's inside is flawless. You need to take this seriously.
Okay, so this stage is set. This divine claim is out there. But how do people actually react to it? Well, this is where the conflict, the real drama truly begins, because the message is met with a very, very human reaction. The first reaction is just pure astonishment. The people of Mecca are just shocked. And not really because of the message itself, but because of who is delivering it. They're asking, why a man from among us, They were probably expecting something huge, some supernatural spectacle, maybe an angel descending from the sky. But instead, they get a message from an ordinary guy they know, someone from their own community. And right here, you see this huge disconnect. The messenger's mission is actually twofold, to warn people and also to bring good news to those who believe. It's a message of both consequence and hope. But the opposition, they don't even engage with the ideas. Instead, they attack the person, calling him an obvious magician. It's a classic move, right? If you can't argue with the message, you try to discredit the messenger. Now, the divine response to this accusation is just fascinating. It doesn't get into a petty back and forth about magic. No. Instead, it completely reframes the whole debate by zooming all the way out, like way out to a cosmic scale, making an argument from creation itself. So the text lays out this powerful theological case in 3 steps. First, it reminds the audience of the one who created absolutely everything they see. Second, it asserts his total authority over all of that creation. And third, it states that he is actively governing every single thing that happens. The unspoken point here is massive. A being with that kind of power surely deserves to be listened to. And this next part, this was a direct challenge to the polytheistic beliefs in Mecca at the time. People were praying to various idols, thinking of them as intercessors or middlemen to a higher god. This verse just cuts right through all of that, establishing that all power, all access belongs only to the one creator. Period. So, after laying out this grand, cosmic argument, the text asks this really simple but profound question. It's an invitation to just think. It's asking the listener to use their own reason. If God is the all-powerful creator and sustainer of the universe, doesn't it just make sense to worship him alone? Why would you possibly turn to anything else? Now, the argument doesn't stop with just who God is. It flows logically into what that means for every single one of us. So we shift from the act of creation to the certainty of consequence, to ultimate accountability. This short, powerful phrase from verse 4, wow, that is the great equalizer, isn't it? It reminds everyone, it doesn't matter what your status is, what tribe you're from, what you believe, that we all share one single destiny, a return to our Creator for judgment. The warning and the good news we heard about earlier, they're not just for this life. They have eternal consequences. And what's just remarkable here is how the text seems to know exactly what excuses people might try to use to get out of being held responsible. It actually predicts two main strategies. First, playing the victim, claiming you were oppressed or misled. And second, making a last-ditch desperate claim of faith when you're facing the music. But the Qur'an immediately shuts these excuses down. It exposes them for what they are: insincere, last-minute ploys. The message couldn't be clearer. What matters is genuine, heartfelt conviction and a life lived with integrity, not just saying the right words when it's suddenly convenient.
Okay, so if belief has to be genuine, if it has to be real, how is it achieved? Well, this final part of the opening dialogue gets right to the heart of what guidance is all about, and it clarifies the exact role of the messenger.
The text poses another one of these powerful rhetorical questions, forcing the audience to really think about their sources of authority. It's a simple test of logic, really. Should you follow a source that brings clear guidance, or one that is itself lost and is just relying on guesswork? So, the text presents a very stark choice between two paths. On one side, you have divine guidance, which is called the truth. And on the other side, you have human assumption, which it says is ultimately useless against the truth. The choice is laid out as a clear one between certainty and, well, just guessing. And this brings us to this core principle of free will. The prophet's role is defined so clearly. He says, "I am not a trustee over you." His job is to deliver the message, to present it clearly and compellingly, but he is not there to force anyone to believe. That decision, to accept or reject the guidance, that rests with each and every individual. And after all the arguments, all the challenges, and all the clarifications, the dialogue wraps up with a promise. It comes full circle right back to the good tidings that were mentioned at the very beginning. For those who choose to believe and then translate that belief into good actions, the outcome is crystal clear: the gardens of pleasure. It's the ultimate resolution to the whole dialogue. And that brings us to our final thought. When we peel back the layers and see the logical, rhetorical, and theological arguments being made in a text like this, how it engages with its original audience's real doubts and objections, it kind of invites us to read it differently. Not just as a set of rules, but as a living, persuasive conversation. So how does that change our perspective today? Something to reflect on. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.